when Lindsay went missing, the investigation has never stopped. We've continued going. We've spoken to thousands of people, searched immense amounts of area. We've created tens of thousands of documents. And so for myself, coming in as a new SIO and a new team, it's still the same relentless pursuit for the truth.
And as that's been going on the whole time, I mean, for the wider world, we may not be thinking about Lindsay during the past 30 years, but in Hebden Bridge, where you are now, has that always been sort of in people's minds ever since she was killed?
I think that's exactly right. This is a small town, it's a genuine community, and people think about this a great deal. It's a safe place, it is a safe place, and yet they've always had this in the history, and that's why it's so important for not just people from Hebden Bridge to remember what's happened and to think about what's happened, and for it to be present and current for them, but for everyone else wider across the country to be aware of it.
There must have been massive developments in policing capability over the past 30 years. How do you then look back at the evidence that was gathered at the time? And we've seen, obviously, the CCTV of Lindsay going out that night to go to the Spa to buy some cereal. But is there anything you can use now retrospectively that you couldn't have done then to try and find out what happened?
I think it's really difficult to look back at 30 years ago and be able to take anything now. The advancements in telecommunications, the prevalence in CCTV means that were this to happen today, we'd be in a far better position to gather that evidence, to understand the movements of everybody that might have been present. But it's really difficult for us to go back and to do that now. What I would say is that science never stops. Science keeps moving on. And I really feel like there could be a development around the science that is going to take us into a really positive position with this inquiry.
Look, James, in that whole time, people will, of course, it's natural to be fearful that there is someone out there who knows what happened and was responsible for what happened. What do you say to people who say, well, maybe they've done it again, or maybe they're in prison having killed someone else already, or, you know, someone knows something and they're hiding them? How do you allay people's fears about this person who killed Lindsay, who is still clearly, not as far as we know anyway, clearly hasn't been brought to justice?
I think it's a really natural fear to have. I'm sure I would feel exactly the same. What I would say is we haven't anything to suggest that something similar has happened and the same person has struck again, but of course I couldn't ever rule anything out. What I would say is that because this has been such a relentless pursuit for the truth, that we've done everything we can to stop this happening again. And you're absolutely right in what you say. Someone out there does know what happened. At least one person knows what happened. Probably more than one person knows what happened. And now's the time for them to come forward and to give me and to give my team that point, that scrap of information that we need to start putting this together to bring this to an end.
You know, James, what really hits home is seeing that CCTV again. And I now have a 13-year-old daughter, exactly the same age Lindsay was when she went missing and was killed. It really hits hard seeing a girl like that going out to the shops and not coming home again. It begs the question, how optimistic are you that you will get what you need to find who is responsible and put people's fears at rest?
I think you're right. It's really poignant CCTV, and when I see that, I can imagine exactly this happening. Optimism, I'll always be optimistic. Relentless enthusiasm is what I'm about in relation to this, and that's why we're here today, to keep going and to show everyone that this is not stopping. We will not forget. We will not stop investigating. This is a relentless pursuit for the truth.
Just to finish off, what kind of response has there been today, given that it is exactly 30 years since Lindsay went missing?
It's been a really, really good response from the people of Hebden Bridge and wider. So we're here in the middle of Hebden Bridge now. We'll continue to be here till later in the night, speaking to people as they come past, the residents of Hebden Bridge. But it's not just about them. It's also about people wider, people who used to live here, people who've moved away. We've had a great response, both through 101, through Crime Stoppers, through the major incident portal that we have set up, through the phone number, the direct phone that we have set up. We've had text messages, we've had voicemails, we've had calls in. We're getting a really good response, and I just really encourage anyone with any sort of information about this, don't assume that we already have it. Don't assume that we already know about it. I'd rather have something twice than not at all, please, because now's the time to end this.